Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3780 AN. Today's date is November 23rd, 2025, and the title of the episode is Trump is following what Andrew Jackson did with the debt back in 1835. Let's talk about protecting our wealth. Retirement is getting harder to reach. Inflation and currency devaluation are eating away at our savings every year. That's why smart investors are turning to Bitcoin, not as a gamble, but as a global hedge backed by major funds, banks, and even government quietly stacking digital assets. After reaching an all-time high of 124,000 in October, Bitcoin has pulled back. Many see this as a perfect opportunity to invest before the next uptrend. When you invest with My Digital Money, you get US-based support and secure offline storage, so your crypto stays protected. You can even open a crypto IRA or roll over your existing 401k to enjoy valuable tax benefits. Don't let inflation steal your future. Protect and grow your digital assets today with MyDigitalMoney.com. MyDigitalMoney.com, smarter investing, safer storage, and better path to retirement. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, you could see that their time is coming to an end. And what Trump is doing right now, he's following in the footsteps of Andrew Jackson. And during Andrew Jackson's time, we know that he got rid of the second central bank in this country. And what he had to do was he had to pay down the debt. And that's exactly what Trump plans to do to get rid of the third central bank in this country, which is the Federal Reserve. Yes, they changed the name so people wouldn't catch on to what was really going on. But when you really start to look at this and you start to see what's happening, you could see the private West Central Bank system has really gutted and destroyed the country from within. And when you look at Argentina had a lot of loans via the IMF. They were in debt. Inflation was crazy. And when Javier Milei came in, he started to reverse everything. And now poverty is at its lowest. And I do believe we're going to see a very, very similar change in this country. You have to remember the deep state, the central bankers, what they've been doing is they've been basically getting the people of this country to be dependent on the government, because as their system breaks down, this is what they have to do, because the currency loses value. There's not that many jobs. You have to ship the jobs overseas. And as time goes on, how do you keep the people happy? How do you control the people? You got to put them on the government, and they have to be dependent on the government. So this way they don't rise up. You have to remember, they've learned from the past. If you just keep taking and taking from the people and they have nothing left to give, what do? They come after you. If you take everything that you have and then you borrow currency and you tax the people that are left and you actually give some of that money to those people that can't make it on their own, you keep them happy and you don't have a revolt. That's what the central bankers have learned over time, and this is what they've been doing. And you could see that Trump now is following in the footsteps of Andrew Jackson, where he's prepared and ready to get rid of the third private West Central Bank system in this country. And what's very interesting is we could see that a lot of the big players, BlackRock, Fidelity, and many others, they basically dumped their ETFs and brought the price of Bitcoin way, way down. It reminds me when they used the paper market for gold and silver, and they dumped the paper market to bring the gold and silver prices down. And it looks like they pretty much did the same exact thing with Bitcoin. And you can see Bitcoin is starting to move up right now. It doesn't mean it's going to go back up to 120 tomorrow, but I do believe it's going to start to rise once again. And maybe they'll hit it again. Maybe they won't. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I do believe it's going to make its move upward. And they will try to suppress it probably, but I do believe it will continue to move up, just like gold is going to continue to move up. Because you have to remember, the central bank system, their currency continually loses value every single day. It's not gaining value, which means the alternative currencies are reflecting upon the true value of the fiat currency. And I do believe that's what we're seeing right now. And it's very interesting that Trump now is tackling the high beef prices, and he's been calling out the meat packers and all of this. And what's very interesting about this, and Representative Mike Flood put this out, is that in Nebraska, it looks like Tyson is going to be closing up shop, and they're going to be shutting down their beef plant there. And this is what Representative Mike Flood says. This is devastating news for our beef producers for Lexington and the whole state of Nebraska. Ranchers have dutifully raised cattle even when times were hard. Now they're being abandoned. After Tyson closed their Norfolk plant in 2006, they stripped the plant bare so it couldn't be used as a beef processing facility. That plant still sits empty today. As they wind down their Lexington plant, Tyson needs to preserve it so it can remain a beef processing operation and keep paying jobs in Dawson County that support our AG communities. No matter what, I know the Nebraskans will work together to pull through this. Now, this is very, very interesting because Trump has called out the meatpacking monopoly. And basically, they've been driving the beef prices up. And with them closing this beef facility, this facility in Nebraska, and moving some of it to other areas and shifting the employment, some of the people down there, it looks like this might raise beef prices. And once again, we can see that they don't want to give up control. They don't want to leave anything out there so you can have the beef packaging out there. And I do believe this is why Trump has made a deal with Argentina, because I do believe a lot of the packaging is going to happen in Argentina. When it comes into this country, this is going to push competition, and we're going to see competition happen, and we're probably going to see beef prices start to come down. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, since we're talking about Argentina, what is very, very interesting about all of this is that UNICEF has now acknowledged the plummeting poverty rate in Malays, Argentina, and sees a collapse in all its dimensions. All poverty indicators have been significantly reduced. Families' ability to cope with current expenses increasing. The proportion of households that cannot go to the dentist falls by 8 points. So right now, they're really no longer borrowing from the private central bank system. Yes, they borrowed from the United States government, but it's very, very different. And you could see that without the central bank, without them getting involved, your country, by slashing government, by doing the things that are necessary, you can make your country great again, just like El Salvador, just like Trump is doing to this country. And I do believe once we get rid of the private central bank system, what we're going to see is that we've all seen the headlines that talk about Ozempic and similar miracle weight loss shots. But what most people don't realize is this. A major analysis just found out that people who stop taking these weight loss injections gain nearly all their weight back within a year. That's the catch. These drugs only work while you're on them. They're expensive, and the moment you stop, your body fights back. This is why I like BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate. And everyone is obsessed with the weight management results I've seen with it. It helps my body naturally trigger the same hunger-controlling, craving-reducing signals that Ozempic would, but without needles, prescriptions, or the scary side effects. It also promotes fullness, helps reduce hunger hormones, supports fat loss instead of muscle loss, and helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels. For a limited time, you can grab a bag of BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate for 40% off only at trimwithx22.com. Plus, you'll also receive a 60-day satisfaction guarantee and free express shipping on subscriptions. Once again, go to trimwithx22.com to get this deal now, or just click the link in the description. The majority of the poverty completely and utterly disappears. All the different programs that they set up completely disappear. And people are going to say, wow, this is so different now. I can't believe this is happening. How in the world do we allow the central bank to do this to us? And I think in the end, people are going to become very, very wise. They're going to understand, and they're going to realize that the central bank was the cause of all of this. Because you have to remember, their system doesn't work for the people. The system breaks down over time. That's why they have to continually restart it. If you look back in history, you see the same pattern over and over and over. And the other thing that's very interesting is that the Treasury Department, they plan to issue regulations barring illegal immigrants and certain foreign nationals from receiving a range of refundable tax credits. And basically, Joe Lange put this out, and what it says is that the Trump administration says it's necessary to ensure federal benefits are limited to those eligible under longstanding law. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the department will implement new rules defining who may claim income tax credits covered by the 1996 Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act. The law restricts access to federal public benefits for individuals who are not U.S. citizens or qualifying residents. Under Trump's leadership, we're enforcing the law and preventing illegal aliens from claiming tax benefits intended for American citizens. The regulation will specify that the refundable portion of the earned income tax credit, the additional child tax credit, the American Opportunity Tax Credit, and the Savers Match Credit constitute federal public benefits. As a result, the Treasury Department said illegal immigrants and other foreign nationals will not be eligible to receive them. Treasury's Office of Tax Policy and Internal Revenue Service have worked tirelessly to advance this initiative and ensure it is successfully implemented. Bissett said their diligence and professionalism reflect the administration's determination to uphold the integrity of our tax system. We will continue to ensure that taxpayer resources are directed only to those who are entitled under the law. And that's how it always should be. And again, I think in the future, what we're going to see is that all these tax laws and everything that we are doing right now with paying taxes, I think eventually what's going to happen, all of this is going to be gone. Because I do believe in the end, the plan is to do exactly what Andrew Jackson has done. Remove the private Western Central Bank, which we'll be talking about in just a sec. But you can see Trump has to show the people that his policies work, that the tariff system will benefit the people, that he has the ability to bring down inflation and bring down energy costs and bring manufacturers back to this country. He has to show everyone basically that he can do everything the central bank is not doing, because the central bank has never done it. And he has to show the people of this country that everything that past presidents have done, well, it didn't work for this country. And everything that he's doing is going to work for this country. Trump, he put this out on Truth, said inflation under Biden averaged nearly 5%, hitting 9.1% during the worst inflation crisis in decades. Inflation under Trump dropped to an average of just 2.7%, the first overall price decline since 2020. Absolutely. And the other thing that you can see is that the U.S. trade deficit, it is definitely improving. The Capizzi letter on X put this out and said, the U.S. goods trade deficit narrowed by $18.6 billion, or 24% in August, to negative $59.6 billion, one of the largest monthly improvements this year. Import declined by negative 5% to $340.4 billion, the second lowest since May 2024. This also marks the biggest drop in imports in 4 months. At the same time, exports rose slightly to $280.8 billion, the highest since April. Since March 2025, the goods trade deficit has improved by $76.8 billion, or 56%, adjusted for inflation. The merchandise trade deficit narrowed to negative $83.7 billion in August, the lowest since the end of 2023. Tariffs are reshaping the U.S. trade, and that's exactly what is happening right now. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: we're taking in trillions of dollars in tariffs and investment dollars from foreign lands because of tariffs. I have stopped 5 of the 8 wars directly because of the threat of tariffs if they don't stop fighting, or better yet, if they start. There is almost no inflation, and the worst in USA history under Sleepy Joe Biden. The stock market just hit an all-time high for the 48th time in 9 months. To Leonard, Keogh, Koch, and all other countries and slimeballs that have ripped off the United States of America for years through the use of their own tariffs, we don't have a court system that's going to let you destroy our country any longer. This is the richest, strongest, and most respected the USA has ever been. November 5th, and tariffs are the reasons why. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. Absolutely. And you can see that Trump is doing exactly what Andrew Jackson has done. Now, he has a bigger central bank system to deal with. It's much deeper and wider and spreads across the globe. But in the end, I do believe with what Trump is doing, he's going to be able to do this, because you have to remember, going back in time to Andrew Jackson's time, he didn't have cryptocurrency. This time, it's very, very different, because now you can use the cryptocurrency, stablecoins, to go up against the central bank system. And I do believe this is the weapon that Trump needed. So when people say, oh, we can't pay off the debt, if you go back to 1835, Andrew Jackson, he was the first and only president to pay off the national debt. Think about that for a second. When he became president, Jackson was determined to rid the U.S. of its national debt. After all, debt enslaves you to your creditors. Jackson knew that being debt-free was essential to independence. This outlook resonated with many Americans back then. With that in mind, Jackson attacked the institutions and powerful people who promoted and enabled the federal debt. This included the bank elite and the second bank of the United States, the country's central bank at the time and precursor to today's Federal Reserve system. Jackson couldn't squeeze the American people with a federal income tax to repay the debt. It didn't exist at the time and would have been unconstitutional. He also couldn't simply print currency to pay off the debt, perpetrating such an insane fraud, which the Fed does on a massive scale today, like never entered his mind. Instead, Jackson had to rely on tax revenue from other sources, mainly import tariffs and excise taxes to pay down the debt. He also drastically cut federal spending and frequently vetoed spending bills. Jackson's determination worked. By January 1835, the U.S. was debt-free for the first time. Unfortunately, it really didn't last that much longer. And after that, the U.S. would never be debt-free again. After Jackson succeeded in ending the second bank of the United States, anything associated with a central bank became deeply unpopular with the American people. So central bank advocates tried a new branding strategy, and they called it the Federal Reserve. Now think about what Andrew Jackson has done here. He was able to pay off the debt, but you can see the central bankers, they were able to come back. They didn't disappear forever. And I do believe this is because we didn't set up certain laws, we didn't set up certain amendments to keep the private central bank system out of our country. And as soon as Andrew Jackson went ahead and paid off the debt, got rid of the private central bank system, the central bankers, they started everything they possibly could start, which they did, to come back into existence. And they continually learn from their mistakes over and over and over and over. Remember, they've been around for thousands of years. And what they did is they put everything into motion, and they made sure that they were ready and able to come back, and they did in 1913. But leading up to 1913, what they did was they made it impossible for the economy. They made crashes happen, and they continued this all the way up to 1913, and that's when they convinced Woodrow Wilson to actually sign the Federal Reserve into law. And I do believe that once President Trump gets rid of the private central bank system, they're going to try to do the same thing once again. I think this time around, Trump knows that we're going to need a lot more control and a lot more legislation to keep the central bank out of this country. And I do believe he's prepared and ready to go ahead and take control of the House and said, I don't mean he's going to be a dictator and do this. He's going to endorse many, many people because we need the people that are going to assist Trump in his America First policies to make America great again. And by having these patriots in place, what can you do? Well, you can move forward with creating certain legislation, and you can actually remove the Federal Reserve. You can actually audit the Federal Reserve. You can create laws that get rid of the Federal Reserve. And once people start to experience the economy without the Federal Reserve, I do believe at that point in time, we can then have a vote on an amendment that actually states that there shall never be a private central bank allowed in this country once again. Now, I don't believe it's going to happen as soon as we win the midterms. I do believe Trump's going to have to show the people, look, everything that I'm doing, where I'm returning your buying power, bringing back the jobs, inflation is not even existent because we got rid of the borrowing from the Federal Reserve. I do believe once he shows the people that, look, the tariff system is the way to go. Your lives are so much better. You have the buying power. It is returned to you. You're no longer paying income tax. I think at that point, the country, no matter who you are, no matter what party you're affiliated with, yes, you're still going to have those people that are going to say, no, I'd rather have the tax. Those people are going to say, you know something? This is the way to do it. What do we have to do to make sure that we never return to what we once had? And I do believe at that point in time, and it'll probably happen maybe in the last year of Trump in his term, where all of a sudden we are going to vote on an amendment. Now, the amendment process probably start before that, but hopefully we'll be able to vote on that across this country and actually put the amendment in place where it stops a private central bank from ever coming back into this country, where we always use the Constitution and we always refer to the Constitution and we always create our own currency. So I do believe that's where all this is headed. And I think Trump, with everything that he's doing, he's putting everything into place and he's following in the footsteps of Andrew Jackson. Because once again, once we get rid of the private West Central Bank system, everyone's lives economically is going to completely change. The infrastructure in this country is going to improve dramatically because we won't be sending the currency overseas or, into NGOs or kickbacks or things like that. When the money is going to be used in this country and people receiving dividends and we're able to pay for things in this country and people just can't borrow, a lot is going to change. The corruption is going to change. Actually, it's going to start to disappear because, again, those people that are criminals that are in office, they're not going to want to be in office because if you can't make any money there, like big money, what's the purpose? Most of these people really don't want to serve. They're there for the money. That's what they're there for. So once that's gone, you're going to see everything change and people's lives economically are going to be absolutely incredible. And those people that are holding gold, those people that are holding Bitcoin, those people that are holding silver, real estate, you name it, hard assets, you're going to see that their lives are going to change. And I think people are starting to catch on to this. I think people are starting to realize that this is the direction that we are headed in. And I do believe it's just right around the corner. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.